Hi, Ebony. How are you? You're going to have to respond to me. Can you not hear me? We're live. You got to talk to me. Let's try to get folks to come on into the room. Let's chat it up for a little bit just to get them going. So we're running a program today.
Yes.
It's about art. So what we want to do is what we always do, Kennedy, is we always go to our Facebook while we're on to make sure that A, it's streaming live, and then B, to encourage guests to join us. So I'm going to go to mine. If you go to yours, I can see us here.
All right, I'm going to mine.
What we want to do, let me turn this down and let's share it now. And we're going to encourage our guests to join us and to share. So I'm sharing mine.
Let me see.
I'm going to say join us now. All right, so hopefully folks will start to join us here in a little bit. Give them a few minutes, So it'll be fun today. I'm super excited about what you and your committee have planned.
Thank you. Yeah, very excited for what we have in store. We'll of course give introductions once we get started, but yeah, I think it's going to be a wonderful discussion. So
we'll give folks a little longer to join. I've posted it on my Facebook page. I see folks are starting to join, so that's super exciting. So we'll keep getting more guests, and you tell me when you're ready for me to go off stage, and I will do that. It's always nice to chat while we're watching. So I'm going to shout out. I see Naquanya has joined. I don't know who else has joined. I can't. Who else do you have? I have Naquanya so far.
Who do I have? Hold on. I think I just have Sora Naquanya right now. I'm sure there are more people.
I'm going to see who's on my personal page as well, because that's always a secret spot.
True.
To do it from both places. All right.
Let me see. All righty. Well, it is 2:05.
Oh, Jackie's on. All right. So Jackie's on, Naquanya on. So if you're ready, you ready for me to give a brief intro?
I am ready. Let's get started.
I am super proud of you. This is your first program. I know it's going to be amazing. So I'm super excited. So I want to welcome everybody out there in Facebook land. This is the celebration of the arts. It's an art conversation hosted by Omicron Upsilon Omega, and along with the Culture Pro Foundation. And we're excited to share what does it take to be an artist? How do you be an artist? All of these amazing things that our committee has presented. If you all haven't tuned into our other programs, I am Lisa Bennett, and I am the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Omicron Upsilon Omega chapter. And this is the arts. And I'm going to turn it over to Kennedy for an amazing program. Please remember to post your questions. I'm going to ask those who've already joined. I'm going to really encourage you to share with youth. It will be on our page and live live for a while, but we really want to share this amazing experience. So I'm going to say good afternoon and turn it over to you, Kennedy. Have a wonderful program.
Thank you, Sora Lisa. Greatly appreciate everyone coming to join us for this amazing panel discussion. Like Sora Lisa mentioned, this program is specifically catered to students, high school students and middle school students who are curious about pursuing a career in the arts. You may be hesitant about it. You may not know what direction to go. And so we're hoping this conversation will help give you some guidance, shine some light, and we hope this is an engaging discussion, and we look forward to it. So first, I will start by giving an introduction to all three of our artists. While I'm talking, there will be a slideshow so you can see the art that our artists have provided to get a glimpse of their style. So we'll get started. So first we have Jamaine. His career as an artist began in the form of graffiti or street art and has evolved into a wide spectrum of mediums, including works on canvas photography, fashion design, mural painting, screen printing, and graphic design. Through years of formal training and life experience as an artist of the people, Jamaine has developed a unique style that combines social awareness, spirituality, mythology, and abstract language in a way that intrigues all who view his work. Driven by the philosophy that art should stimulate one's eyes and mind, Jamaine's work is a reflection of his constant critique of the world around him, fused with thought-provoking concepts and imagery. Channeling inspiration from past, present, and future influences, including vintage posters, African-American quilt making, interior design, graphic novels, architecture, and science fiction movies, Jamaine creates a patchwork of visual collection that exemplify his passion to deconstruct popular norms and challenge cultural stereotypes. Currently, Jamaine's works from his studio in Norwalk, Connecticut, and is a teaching artist and curator. While maintaining a healthy balance between public and private exhibits and commissions, Jamaine always finds time to produce spontaneous artworks in the streets from which his creativity energy flows. Thank you, Jamaine, for agreeing to participate in this discussion. We greatly appreciate it. Next, we have Kalila. Kalila Harris is pursuing a Master of Arts in Religion at Yale University. Kalila is also a semi-professional mixed media collage artist and art curator. She centers her involvement in the arts around curatorial works with visual arts exhibits that create a visual narrative for her research surrounding the topics of African-American women's cultural history, African-American women's religious experience, Reconstruction, HBCUs, Southern life, and beauty and fashion culture. Thank you, Kalila, for joining us as well. And finally, we have Robert L. Newman III. He is a self-taught American multidisciplinary artist, prominently known for his expressionist portraits. He currently lives and works in Harlem, New York City. Newman's work primarily follows and examines the narrative of the Black American post-Civil War Reconstruction era. Newman's artistic journey began in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the front window of his grandmother's doll shop. From there, Newman has traveled and lived in all over the United States, with most of his time spent in what is known as the Jim Crow South: Florida, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Georgia. He weaves in his experiences with Black culture from these multitudes of vantage points to highlight the brilliance and resilience of Black Americans. I'm going to share a quote that he provided. "Sketching and painting have always been my first loves. But as I grow as an artist, I've grown more interested in fashion, photography, curation, and writing. A lot of my work is still influenced by my grandmother. The doll shop was situated in the historic Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, also known as Black Wall Street. She was extremely active in the civil rights movement and continues to advocate for the Black community in education, policy reform, and economic development. She was my first teacher. Since then, I've had the opportunity to study at Morehouse College, a historically Black college in Atlanta, Georgia, and the alma mater of Martin Luther King, Jr. Because of this, my work is in constant conversation with my community. I seek to create work that represents my peers and neighbors in the way that I see them. My hope is that through this process of storytelling, I will be able to facilitate healing and growth for Black Americans who have lived with the generational trauma of slavery and oppression." Oh, wow, we truly do have an amazing group of panelists. And I'm, like I said, very excited for you guys to enjoy this conversation, engage in this conversation. And of course, special thank you to the artists for agreeing to do this panel discussion. So I think we have everyone here. All right, well, let's get started. So for our first question, I was wondering if each of you could share your inspirational path to becoming an artist and what keeps you inspired to maintain this career path. Kalila, let's start with you.
Well, I'll say that, so before this year, I wasn't doing art. I grew up in elementary school, early middle school, doing art lessons, going to art camps, etc. Like my parents were invested in me as a young artist. But I actually tried out for a middle school of the arts, and I didn't get in, and I just like stopped. But at the start of the quarantine last year, last March, when everything really slowed down, I really sat down, sat with myself, and like reconsidered what I was doing in life and what passions I had and what passions I kind of left behind. Um, and I was just like, I'm going to just get back into doing art. My younger sister is a professional artist. She was trained her entire life. Um, and I was probably also inspired by my sister's work that I got to be included in an art exhibit at Yale, my first year at Yale. And so, yeah, what inspires me, or I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Oh, no, you're okay. What keeps you inspired to maintain this career path?
Yes, what got me inspired was a break and a conversation with myself. And what keeps me inspired is my research and the need for for visuals for my research.
Definitely. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again.
Exactly. You can try 10 years later, 15 years later.
It doesn't, there's no specific time frame, you
There's no
know.
timeline.
Exactly. Thank you. Robert, how about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess I'll answer in two parts. The bio you mentioned earlier kind of answered how I got inspired.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of artists in my family. My father is a very handy, crafty person. He does all the maintenance work around the house and does the yard stuff. My grandparents were always into the arts, and growing up, as opposed to it being a career path, it was always just a process for me. So everybody always knew that, you know, you could work with your hands, you could do things that that otherwise, like, you come up with the idea, you make it into reality just by sitting down and like planning it out. And what keeps me inspired to this day is like being able to see how that process has affected my life, and how it continues to be something just pivotal in how I move, or how I interact with other people. So I know like the pandemic and last year was it was a headline for everybody. And one of the ways that I was able to cope, deal with, process like everything that was happening was literally like the art form, like me sitting down and like getting deeper within my craft and figuring out what I was working through in terms of emotions, or what other people around me were working through. So it's always been a very intimate relationship with the process as opposed to the product.
Wow, it's amazing. Thank you for that. And Jermaine, how about yourself?
Similar, piggybacking off of my bio statement. I was inspired early just from graffiti culture. You know, I came out of the early '80s. You know, I'm a '80s baby, so I was living in the '80s. So I saw, hip hop culture and street art and music and all of that stuff. Inspired us early, and it was a lot less traditional. I was influenced by art just by seeing, graffiti for the first time in the Bronx, and seeing, movies like Wild Style and Beat Street and stuff like that. That had a heavy impact on myself and my peers. So we just wanted to become, what that was. So we participated in breakdancing and rhyming and doing graffiti. Graffiti impacted my my group of peers a little bit different, because we had that sort of itch in us, and then once we saw that, okay, hey, I could just put my art in the street, I could go start tagging my name and start sort of getting popular by becoming a street artist. That sort of fueled our drive to further pursue the art form, and then as we started to study it a lot more and develop our styles, that helped us, start looking to other forms of art, taking early trips to like the Metropolitan Museum, as a kid, and seeing different types of art forms and figuring out how we could, use some Picasso or use some, Cezanne or whoever, different color palettes and things of that nature, and incorporate that back into our graffiti art. That helped our individual styles stand out a lot different. So that actually, sent us on a path to start studying art ourselves. Before school or before any of that, so we would just hang out in rooms and just go through art books or go to the library and just take out art books and stuff like that and start to study art early and then, put it into our graffiti. And then it just sort of, steamrolled over, into fashion and into creating stuff that we could sell, so even being, a young artist, 10 or, well, maybe more like 15 or 16, 14, 15, 16, doing jean jackets and doing, painted clothes and selling them and being able to make, a couple $100. That was motivation, and then that sort of became inspiration to pursue what we were doing even more. So, that was the beginning of being inspired to do art. And what keeps me inspired now is really the dialogue, the power of art, the power that art has to communicate with people. Not necessarily our jobs as artists, but I think it's a duty, we're sort of called to this path to create things to communicate with people, and especially even people that may not be able to create themselves, but you can create something that sparks, and that connects with them, so I'm always inspired to do that.
No, definitely. I think art, transcends traditional aspects of communication, and it's in almost every single culture. So thank you, all of you, for sharing that with us. And kind of on the same tip, if you guys could share, a time where you wanted to give up on your dream of being an artist, and what you did to overcome that. In life, we're brought with so many adversities, and especially I would say in my generation, there's this push for young Black and brown students to pursue careers in STEM, which is great. Anyone who does science, technology, engineering, or math, if that's your passion, then of course go for it. But definitely, I think pursuing a career path in art hasn't been pushed as much as it used to be. So if you guys could share, a time in which you thought about giving up but decided to keep going. How about Robert? We start with you, or John. Go ahead.
I just jumped the gun. I can honestly say I never really thought about giving up per se, but there were always times that made me do things in order to keep doing art. So I've done all types of different jobs, things that didn't relate to art, but in the back of my mind, it was always in order for me to be able to pursue an art career. So it was never, thought of giving up, but it's just, what else could I do in order to support my career, and that's what I would say to younger artists, up and coming artists. It's like, if this is your path, then everything else, should sort of, revolve around you pursuing it. And it's definitely, it's getting a lot. You have a lot more avenues these days. I won't say it's getting a lot easier, but, with social media and with access to the world, through digital mediums, you have a lot more avenues to pursue, as opposed to being, a fine artist in, the 60s, 70s, or, the Harlem Renaissance and things of that nature. Now you could do stuff in your house and have access to the world, So, giving up, not to say it shouldn't be an option now, but it's a lot, you have a lot more options now, I think.
No, definitely. TikTok is becoming very prominent. A lot of TikTok artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have if that's your end goal. If your end goal is one to, I guess, be popular and then somehow monetize it, you don't necessarily even have to do much. It's sort of weird now, but I guess it's where you stand with it.
Definitely. Robert, how about you?
Yeah, I'll answer this one. I approach artistry kind of from a different angle because what I was saying earlier with that process, because I was always so involved in it, it was like being a fish in water. So when people started asking me about art, or when I started thinking about it, I never realized or never called myself an artist. So my professional career is actually in financial services, and I have a degree in business, and it actually took me longer to get to the point where I reconciled that I was an artist. And I think that was something a little bit, another roadblock that a lot of young artists I feel like run into, where we feel, or where I know I definitely felt like I wasn't almost at the level that I needed to be to measure up to like the people that I thought were my heroes or the folks that were the greats. So I thought, okay, these people are artists, and what I do is I just sketch, or I just paint. These other guys, they write, they tell stories, but me, I maybe do like one-liners. I don't tell whole stories. And I think it was through, I think like my peer group, my friends, family, like after I started getting like the more into that conversation that John Mayer was talking about, that interaction. And I started realizing that the job of the artist wasn't necessarily for me to be famous or to be in the museums or to have like the acclaim, but it was about the conversation and about where we can move people from point A to point B. I started leaning into it more. And then from that point on, it just made it a lot easier. So we have the access. We got the practical stuff on the technology side with social media, Facebook, and ways to share our art. But me thinking about it from a standpoint of it's the conversation. It's me creating something, expressing an idea, and then giving that to somebody else. It made it a lot easier for me to go through my daily life, understanding that art could be the painting that I make. Art could be the way that I carry myself. As long as I'm able to express that to somebody else in a way that I think ultimately is positive, then it was just easier for me to say like, okay, I get it. I'm an artist. Okay, like I can do this. Okay, I get it. Like this is how they interact with me. Okay, I can tell one more story because it doesn't have to be the right one, but we need this one too. And I think that's how I ended up. Those were the situations where I did not think I was an artist, and like how I kind of, I guess, overcame that mental hurdle.
Definitely. I think, we see so many famous artists and we oftentimes compare ourselves to their work. And, we have this viewpoint of what it means to be an artist when really the definition is up to you, and you explain that so beautifully. Kalila, how about yourself? I know you talked about, that you had a 10-year gap of, pursuing art and not. So if you could share a little bit more, that'd be great.
Well, first, I just wanted to say that the interesting thing about art for me is that it kind of forces me to, or allows me to consider the expansiveness of life. And it also kind of forces me to reckon with the concept of time. Like academia, you have a program, you might have a 2-3 year master's program, or you might have a 4 or 5 year PhD program. And it's all about producing content in a certain amount of time. It's all about making certain, it's all about increasing, or I guess edifying yourself as a scholar in a certain amount of time. By year, you ought to be getting better. Your writing ought to be getting better. Your project should be changing, and the art world, or art itself, is just the opposite of that kind of like ebb and flow of academia. And so, for me, I just sit in that and I rest in that and I lean towards that when I struggle with, okay, how quickly can my art get better, or how much work can I put out, this month? And when I find myself, experiencing tons of anxiety, right, about creating new content. I have an Instagram page for my art, so sometimes I'm like, oh, I haven't posted something in like 2 weeks. I'm going to lose followers, or I'm not going to gain followers, or what if somebody's waiting for another piece of mine? Like, same thing. It's like, I need to publish this. I need to, do this article. Something needs to be. And just the beautiful thing about art is that, like, you have time, and you have your whole life to get better, or just to do more. Not even about better or worse, but just like to do more art, to create more art, more opportunities to take the stuff in your head and put it down on a canvas or a piece of paper or whatever. And so it's interesting, like a hurdle that I had in another area of my life, I found prescription through art.
Mm.
And so I find it to be really beautiful.
No, definitely. I mean, I think, with the presence of social media, yes, it's a great thing because it, gives people a chance to get their work out there, but you also feel the pressure of like needing to post like every every week, get your work out there. And
at 6 o'clock, you got to post at 3 and 12 and 6.
You got to hit the right time frame so that you get the most. No, definitely. But no, it's beautifully said that, art, the beauty of it is you can take your time. You do in fact have your whole life. And, it's not like you're on some deadline that, I need to, be famous by 25 or 30. Like, oh no, definitely. So switching gears a little bit, John Maine, I know you, in your first answer, you did talk about the Harlem Renaissance. So I did want to ask all of you how the Harlem Renaissance and the Black arts movement has influenced your work. You have artists like Aaron Douglas, Augusta Savage, Louise Jones from the Harlem Renaissance, and even Mary Baraka from the Black arts movement. So, how have those movements, helped you in your workflow, inspire you in any way?
I mean, one of my, I guess, coming out of that movement, I mean, I'm heavily inspired by Bearden a lot. He was one of the key artists, like, when I go back to us sort of being self-taught and just finding our way through the art world, by ourselves. Bearden's work was sort of like it sort of sparked something in me, even with his different movements within his own collections of work. But just the Renaissance movement itself, as a young Black artist, it sort of showed me that it can happen, and just there's so many different focuses on European art, and you don't see us anywhere until you sort of get to that Harlem Renaissance. It was a time where everything from writing to music to visual art, that's where we just sort of just said, we are artists and we can do this. We don't have to necessarily, fall under the confines of just being, Black people struggling in America. We have, voices and we have talent that we want to show to the world. And that paralleled my life as a graffiti artist also, because that's what you're saying to the world. It's like, it may be legal or seen as legal, and, everybody has their opinions, but you're putting your art out there. You're saying that, this is who I am. This is my name. I'm going to go as far as I can take it, I'm going to put it in your face, and you're going to sort of appreciate my art, whether you like it or not, So I think, the Renaissance gave me that confidence to be an artist, a Black artist, or artists in general, under the situation of America, That's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting in both of those times, I mean, Black Americans have always been faced with racism and oppression, but especially in the Black arts movement, 1960, 1970, we have the civil rights movement, and, all that passion, is seen in those artists. So no, definitely. Robert, Kalila, I mean, I don't know if you guys have anything to.
Yeah, for me, I'm joining in from Harlem now. So, I mean, the Harlem Renaissance, it's hard to say that it was everything, but hard to really draw the lines where the inspiration stopped at. In terms of like how I operate as an artist, I think the Renaissance provided a model for how artists should interact with each other, especially for Black artists. There's a lot of things, because we're in America, we're pushed to this individualistic culture, very competitive, very winner take all. And I think the most beautiful thing that came out of the Harlem Renaissance, and even any of these like social justice or civil rights movements, was there's power in numbers. There's power in energy. There's power in community. And like, by the time I decided to become a professional artist within New York community, I knew from day one, like I always wanted to be around like my peers. I always wanted to promote their work. I always wanted to make sure that I'm pulling inspiration from them and and pouring inspiration out. And again, I think that's everything. Like if the story or if the job or profession is to tell stories, I don't know. I just get like excited about being around other storytellers and hearing it from the view.
Definitely. Kalila, how about yourself?
So my answer is like a two-part answer. So the first part is like piggybacking off of Robert. That's my favorite thing about the Harlem Renaissance is that they did their thing and then they went out that night and they like were at a lounge all night together, laughing and drinking and dancing. Community is really important to me. I don't think anything can happen outside of community, or I don't understand how anything happens outside of community. I think what's inspirational for me about the Harlem Renaissance is that part, because of the fact that my artwork is inspired by my written work and the written work of other scholars. And I actually go to Harlem Renaissance literary artists for inspiration because like I said, I primarily storytell by way of words, and then I create art based on my writing and the books that I read. And so Dorothy West is my favorite author. So Dorothy West books, as well as Zora Neale Hurston's books, help me in my storytelling, which then helps me as it relates to the way I go about bringing these together. So it's just all about the conversation that happens between the disciplines for me. Gotcha. And that's what's so beautiful about the Harlem Renaissance.
Definitely. Zora Neale Hurston is an amazing top tier.
Yeah.
Top tier. I mean,
I'm originally from Florida, and being at Yale, I was so far away. I named my apartment Eatonville because I missed being home so much. I was being down south, but her stories, and as well as Dorothy West's stories, being closer to Massachusetts, were just keeping me grounded. And
even Zora's own personal story of how she became an artist is, I mean, if anyone watching, doesn't know the story, I mean, I definitely encourage someone to read up on that because, she had a very struggled life. Her life was not perfect by any means. But in that, I mean, she created some of the most memorable, notable literary works in the 20th century. If you haven't read Their Eyes Were Watching God, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's all I got to say.
And there's an interesting documentary on Zora Neale Hurston on Amazon Prime for anybody who's interested in kind of starting somewhere and getting to know her. It's a cool documentary.
If anyone wants to watch that, if you have an Amazon Prime account, Kalila she plugged you in right there. That's what she did. Also, if anyone in the chat, I know people are watching live, if you have questions yourself, we are going to have a Q&A session shortly. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will be happy to read them. So what I think is interesting about the Harlem Renaissance, the Black arts movement, is that some of these artists didn't go to college to pursue art. So I want to get your thoughts on if it's necessary to go to college to become an artist. I mean, if you talk about other fields of work, whether that's being a doctor, being a lawyer, being in business, it is, very much pushed that you should go to college. I mean, I preferably want my doctor to go to med school. Most people would probably agree with me on that one. But as an artist, you kind of forge your own journey. So, I do want to get, all of your perspectives on, if you think it's necessary, beneficial, helpful, and just your personal thoughts. Whoever wants to start.
I mean, I don't think it's, I mean, obviously, I don't think it's necessary. I just think education or higher forms of education or however it comes is important across the board. I think in the field of art, I mean, most artists that I know, I mean, I went to Norfolk State, it's not an art-based school. It's not like, RISD or any of these other crazy art schools. But they had a strong arts program that benefited me. But by the time I got there, I was so entrenched in the art world that it just added on to what I was doing. But I also noticed that a lot of artists and people that I know that go to art specific schools and people that go through just the whole academic train of becoming artists find themselves almost wanting to or needing to break out of the mold that they've been put into as artists. I mean, I'm not slighting academia, but it's like it becomes cookie cutter sometimes. So it's like, okay, if you need to go and learn certain principles in art, color theory and things of that nature, it can help you. It depends on where you're going as an artist. But I think art is something that's so integral to the individual person and how you interpret, the world around you and what you really want to create, that sometimes it can become almost a burden learning art, and learning what should be and what you should do and learning these rules that, as we all know, the majority of great artists are the people that broke the rules. I mean, I'm not promoting dropping out of, college or not going to school, but you always hear like the genius and all these people that said I'm not doing that, or I'm gonna do it a different way. So how can you teach this way, but then you put all these other people, or they put themselves, the geniuses, put them, become, these higher, beings or people that are looked up to for going against the system, So I mean, I definitely don't knock it. I mean, from just a social aspect, especially, going to a historically Black college and just being around my people and learning and just, taking part in a lot of different, cultural aspects that you may not have from the city that you're in or the town that you grow up in, or being around your people in such numbers. The experience is great, but I don't think it's necessary, me personally.
Yeah, I'm gonna wholeheartedly agree with that, and I really want to say that balance is important with anything in life. And even as myself, someone who's in academia now, no matter the discipline, you need to have one foot in and one foot out, like, in the world, so that you can touch the grass. Like, that's one of my favorite sayings, like, just touch the grass. I think, as Jermaine said, when you are in academia or higher ed, there is a certain mold that every institution has, and they are seeking to go in a particular direction regarding a subject or a field. And so it's important to be out in the world, out in the different communities and kind of like seeing where the world is going. But sometimes higher ed, academia, more often than not, can be very out of touch.
True.
With the world and the flow of the world. They are doing their own thing. And so I think that as an artist in particular, like, there are so many different areas in life that you can pull from. And so you don't have to go to school for art, because look at Robert and I don't have a single degree in art history. I didn't go to the New School and or any of those top art institutions, but I'm doing it. And you have to recognize also that there is this push for this like bivocational movement going on that's allowing people to kind of just tap into all the things that they want to tap into. So whether you went to school and got formally trained or received formal education in art and art history, or the world or the streets is teaching you how to be an artist, and our communities are teaching you how to be an artist. I think it depends on the individual, depends on what you want, but balance is always important.
Robert, how about yourself?
Yeah, I can add a lot to this conversation. I'm gonna separate right now just like artists between like somebody that works as it in the STEAM field, so like in arts as like a designer or printmaker or some type of like professional arts career, like 9 to 5. I don't think that you need to go to art school for that. Art school is helpful because it'll give you techniques and it'll give you the networks. So it'll give you the people that may already be in these institutions that, again, if you want to be a graphic designer, for example, or if you want to be somebody in film, like you may want to go straight to Disney. That's cookie cutter, a way that they program and a way that they create that they may want to teach and that you may want to learn. But if we're talking about artists from, I think what all of us on here are talking about, this communication and like storytelling with our community, that's a part that, again, is less about the school. That's more in the realm of like inspiration and perspective. And I don't think anybody can give you an opinion. And it's about like how much you are okay with like sharing that opinion. And then ultimately, I think as an artist defending it, you know? So that's kind of where I stand on that. Like, I don't think you could be trained. I think it's helpful. But I do think if you're an artist that doesn't really have a strong direction for where you want to go, school is good for technique, but otherwise it could be confusing.
I want everyone to know they're out here dropping knowledge right now. I mean, I think it's true. You know, I think I got my degree in economics, which is very far from art. But I think the great thing about attending a liberal college like Spelman or like Morehouse, you know, is that you get a very holistic education, you know. Like you're required to take certain courses to fulfill your, your degree. Some courses, you know, I never would have probably taken had I not been forced to. You know, there's especially, you know, attending a predominantly white high school, there were certain, writers, certain, just Black professionals that I never knew or heard of. I didn't know of Audre Lorde until I went to Spelman. And so, you know, college can, of course, help, like, you know, give you that education, which can, of course, you know, help, facilitate, grow your art. But I think, like all of you have said, it's not necessarily mandatory. You know, just because you don't go to college, you know, doesn't mean you're not going to be a fantastic artist. I think, you know, life is in fact school. You know, you live life, and you know that is school in and of itself. You're learning from every single situation that you go through, whether it's the ups or the downs.
So thing here for like
go ahead.
The schooling versus the art. I think that amongst like most of the profession, art is definitely one of those things that's separated immensely by doing and thinking. So the schooling part, again, it helps with the thinking. I think that's the best way I can put it. The inspiration, the people around you, even the community, that helps with the thinking. But at the end of the day, and I'm gonna steal a quote from Picasso, even though he had like a lot of formal schooling and training in the arts, he said that inspiration exists out there. It just has to find you working. So art is about doing. It doesn't matter if you're a photographer, a designer, a painter. The only way you express is through that actual that medium. Once you hit the medium, that's how you end up getting better at your craft. That's how you end up communicating more clearly to your audience. That's how you even work out your own thoughts for yourself. So it's all you're doing, I think. And once you get closer to your process of doing, then you start realizing, do I need to know about other artists? Do I need to know more techniques? Do I need to know different disciplines? And then you start being able to build what other competencies you need. But like from just a pure artist standpoint, like art is about doing. Art is purely about doing. And if you're not doing it, you may not be an artist. But as long as like you can do a thing and say like, I stood up, I'm not necessarily like a director, but I directed one small piece of work, then that makes you a director. I don't have to be in a museum, but if I painted a thing, I'm a painter. So art is focusing the doing, I think.
Definitely. Even Khalila's quote is actually in the chat. You said, keep one foot out so you can touch the grass. That's what you got to do. So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and, ask these questions that I have here. So for Robert, you specifically, you work in corporate America. You work in finance. So how, as someone who works as a professional artist and in corporate America, how do you equally invest yourself in both passions?
I fully invest myself in both passions. It sounds more in the beginning of my career, both financial services and in art, I used to get the work-life balance question a lot. And that actually used to trip me up a bit, because in my head, I thought that there was like this magic formula or equation that meant like 60% art, 40% finance, or on this day, like 35%, and it all kind of balances out. But that's not true. It's like, it's more like a diet. It's more like, you need this much amount of exercise. You got to exercise different muscle groups. You can't eat bread alone. You got to eat fruit. You got to eat meat. You got to eat the vegetables. And when I say I invest myself fully, it becomes easy for me because it's a thing that I understand with art I learn from anywhere. So there's not a moment I can pull back from my day-to-day that I can just like skate through. Like, so corporate America, I have to be paying attention because I'm like, the interactions I'm having with the people, the interactions I'm having with, the company, the interactions that the company's having with the broader environment. Like, these are all things that I ultimately want to put in my art. When I go back into the company after finishing a painting, I'm looking at different problems and having a whole different perspective, because I spent all night working on the problem in some shape or form on the canvas without even knowing it. So it's being okay to not, this is weird. I actually had to give myself permission to do more, that I was okay with doing all these things. And then once I did that, it became a lot easier for me to show up every day and then say, okay, I'm this person. Whether it's, again, 15 minutes on the canvas, 10 minutes on the canvas, or 2 days straight on the canvas and me not doing anything for the office, but me being okay with like investing myself fully in whatever it is in front of me. I think that balance it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you're working 40 hours a week, that's not in the field of art. It can be difficult, when you're working an 8-hour day and you're tired and you get home and you're like, oh, I gotta, I gotta either paint, photograph, whatever your medium may be. But it's important just to do it. It's not give yourself excuses on I'm tired or I'm going to put it off to the next day, because you kind of get into the habit of putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. So
there's definitely, I would say with this is definitely a discipline to it. And I almost go back to what you said earlier about the doing and how we were all talking about just making sure that there's a production value to it. But again, I think maybe like my bigger theme here is like just making sure that I'm curious on both ends. That's how I end up doing both. Because otherwise, if I'm looking at either as just a job, like I'm doing this to escape this thing, or I'm only doing this thing to support that other thing, then that ends up creating conflict. And it creates this dichotomy of like, okay, I have two different worlds that can't draw from each other. Versus where I am now, to where I'm like, it's all the same thing. All live under the same umbrella. And me showing up in the office is the same way I show up at the canvas.
Definitely. And even Kalila, for yourself, I mean, you're getting your master's in religion at Yale. So of course, a good amount of your time is spent doing that. So how do you even, find time to also do your collage work as well? Or do the two often intersect together?
It's funny because when I can't do one, I do the other. Sometimes when it's just like, I do not want to write this. I write papers like last minute. I don't care what the page count is. I can type something up like super fast, but I know what I'm talking about. But those days leading up to the due date is when I find like so much inspiration in art. And then sometimes when I can't, I just don't know what to create. That's when I'm like, I'll go read some more for my own personal research, or I'll go kind of like just do some writing. So not being able to do one accommodates the other for me. And
Gotcha.
so that's kind of like how I balance that out. Like literally when I'm not doing one, I can do the other one, and I got a lot of hours in the day. So
there you go. There you go. Finding that balance is definitely important. Jermaine, a question I have for you. I was watching an interview that you had, and the interviewer asked, you know, with everything that's happening in the climate with social justice, you know, there's a lot of emotion. And I think the interviewer talked about, you know, where do you put that anger? And then you went on to say, it's not necessarily fair to always say that, you know, Black men have this one singular emotion of anger, but that, you know, we have multiple emotions, you know, that we have multiple emotions, you know, that we are able to express. So when you're, you know, doing your art, what emotion do you draw from most frequently, or what's the easiest emotion to draw from? Like what that process is.
Yeah, I mean, I like that you called that, and I don't think it was the interviewer's total intention, but I think a lot of times, but I think a lot of times our art, and especially when it's you know talking about you know social injustices, begins with anger, and it's like, you know, well, you know, why are you so mad? Or we're expected to do art that just reflects what's going on in society, and that we're angry about it, and we're just mad, and like we're just a monolithic, you know, culture of people that's the only way we can react to things is just based on anger. You know, I mean, there's so many different emotions that come from the things that are happening to us. You know, I mean, there's anger, there's fear, there's you know wanting for love, there's wanting for caring, for understanding. So I mean, there's all this, there's you know all types of emotions. So I think as artists, or even as myself, I almost leave anger. I try to keep anger out of the picture because that's a given. Of course, I'd be angry seeing Black babies get shot and Black women get murdered. Of course, I'm angry. But then, what else can I say? How else can I approach this to have a conversation? You know, maybe first and foremost with my people that I'm trying to go through this traumatic situation and this traumatic reality with, and at the same time, how can I explain like the bigger picture or dissect the bigger picture and how we can deal with it, solve it, not to say just move past it, but get to a position where we can consciously make decisions that will help us as a whole. I mean, like you know, it's hard to just speak of, you know, just a group of people sometimes, but sometimes we are talking to us. Certain things we say and do, we get it that other cultures may not get. So how can I put stuff out there that is a conversation amongst us, and also how can we go beyond that? Because you know, even you know, like I said in the interview, I mean, and it's you know, it's a highly debated, I think, subject when you start talking about art, being an artist or being a Black artist, and then being you know told or put in the box of being a Black artist, and then once you are in that, what's almost expected of you. You know, I mean, definitely we want to see, you know, pictures of the Black experience and slavery and things that we've been through, which is definite. We are that. But then we're beyond that. Slavery and a lot of the things that we're going through, just, you know, small fractions of our history as a people. We've been around thousands of years, and we've had great kingdoms, and we've done so many things that can't just be confined to these experiences. So we should be able and open to talk about that, whether it's through abstraction, whether it's through, you know, just symbolic stuff, or just, you know, expressionist stuff. We should be able to explore the gambit of art and not just be confined to certain things. I mean, let alone just anger. You know? So that's how I approach creating, you know, my emotional reactions, I guess.
Definitely. I mean, we are a lot more than what is traditionally seen in mass media. I was even having a conversation. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, or expected of us.
Or respect. Exactly. I was even having a conversation with my brother about even what we're seeing on television, and this Black horror genre that's, Kalila, no, this black horror genre that, you know, Jordan Peele has opened up, and he did it so well with Get Out, but you know, you see the show on Amazon Prime, Them, and just how, you know.
Yes, it's become cliche. It's become, you know, just something that I think we get boxed in a lot, and especially with popular culture, because we don't have the people in position or the positions to really put our voices and visions out there. I mean, granted, you have the Tyler Perry, you have these people, but even a lot of these people are puppets in the bigger picture, if you ask me. Exactly. So once they get a hold of one concept or one idea, then you get a million shows just perpetuating the same thing. And it's like, okay, well, what else? Oh, well, let's perpetuate this. And it still just becomes so cliche, and there's no real touch with who we are. I don't think, you know.
Definitely. So we actually do have a question from the audience. I know we're running a little bit low on time, so we'll try to keep this quick. One person asked, what is the best way to remain lucrative as an artist?
That's a $1 billion question. I think all those answers, you know, talking. I'll let you guys take that.
Stay busy. Actually, no, I have a couple of good practical ones for this one. We definitely already spoke about like social media, so I think this is one of the best parts about having like the corporate job and the art aspect, because there's a lot of parts of it that I do think like cross over. That when we talk about like what do you need to go to art school for, it's like you don't necessarily need to learn how to paint, but you do need to learn how to be a business person. So it is good. Entrepreneur, you will want to learn how to again just stay active. Like not necessarily you don't have to produce 100 things in the world, but making sure that there's eyes on your artwork. It doesn't have to be a million eyes, but making sure that there's good eyes on your artwork, like people that appreciate what you're actually making and willing to share it. Okay, with finding folks that again aren't the quantity but the quality folks. It takes a lot longer to do it, but those are the ones that'll end up promoting the work. You'll end up making more money off of longer term. The business aspect, do some price research. There are a lot of Black artists that started because we're gifted and talented on our own and started without doing any of the business side of it, and we may just be underselling our work. So figure out what type of work you're doing, who's doing it already, and how to actually expense it the right way. You know your worth and add taxes, they say.
I'll second that. I mean, definitely don't sell yourself short. I mean, I think even with a lot of the social media, I think people are just anxious to just put their stuff out there and just let it go, and don't have any concept of the business side of what it takes to be an artist, and think long term. Think about your legacy. Think about your estate. Start thinking about the quality of your work and how it will benefit your grandchildren. So you're not just doing stuff on the cheap and just giving art away just to be popular. You have to add quality and value to your work.
Definitely. And lastly, because I know we're running low on time and I know you guys probably have other commitments, I'm going to combine all of these three questions together. One person asked how we can purchase your art and a great way to get in touch with you guys. So that's one question. And another person asked, what's next? And do you have any upcoming exhibitions that we can attend? So feel free.
I'll go first because I actually have to go.
Yeah.
But, so I am curating I'm curating an exhibit at Yale University next fall. Well, this fall, 2021, in October. So if you follow my Instagram page for my art, it's at Small Nation Photographs. I can share that with you all and you can put it in the chat. Let me actually just, if you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so it's Small Nation Photographs on Instagram, and you can keep up with my exhibit as well as my art to purchase. I also do. You can also commission me to do work, so I'm doing a couple right now. So on my Instagram, you'll find my website, and I have a personal website, KalilaHarris.com, where you can get in contact with me, and my email should be on both of those websites.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Kalila. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, Jermaine, Robert, how can we?
So same thing. My website, artofjermaine.com. That's more, it's a portfolio, different collections. I work in different collections, different styles. And then you can contact me directly for pricing. My Instagram is, it sort of chronicles a lot of, my art and just things that, inspire me as an artist. Is at Art of Jermaine on Instagram, and then Art of Jermaine on Facebook, and all the social media tied in. I have so much stuff going on. One thing that is actually coming up June 5th. I'm a fellow at a development happening in Norwalk called the Norwalk Art Space, which is for this area. It's sort of a revolutionary, type of thing for artists. It's designed to be an active workspace for artists and residents. There's going to be a lot of programming working with developing artists, young mid-career artists. And then the fellows that are involved are going to have shows that we curate and bring in, artists that inspire us. I'm actually doing a show with Adger Cohen's, which was like the right-hand man of Gordon Parks. Adger,
Oh, wow.
He's a photographer / artist, and just like a wealth of art, knowledge and history. So that the show that I'm doing is happening in late June, but the introduction show is happening June 5th. You can Google or look up the Norwalk Art Space and get more info.
Awesome. If you guys are available in June, definitely slide through to that. I know it's going to be an awesome experience.
Definitely.
About you, Robert, what you got going on?
Nice. My Instagram at Rob Newman III. So Rob Newman I. From there, I have everything linked to my art Instagram page. That's my personal page that keeps up with not just the artwork, but different arts community work that I'm doing, and different and pop-ups and like events that I'm working on in the city. Memorial Day weekend, if you're in Harlem or in New York, I'll be hosting a pop-up that weekend out in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. So that'll be fun. A 2-day event. It will be going on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 6, both days. And then for anybody that may be joining from Philly, I will be in Philly on Juneteenth. And
awesome.
Popping up down there, hanging out. So be on the lookout. Again, Rob Newman III is my Instagram, and my work is available online for purchase at my personal website, rxbart.com.
Yes, we have linked all of the social media in the chat. So definitely for those that are still tuning in, watching, please take a look at these artists' website and their work. Their work is very powerful, inspiring. I don't necessarily like to call myself a photographer, but you guys have definitely given me the inspiration to pursue my dreams and make it happen. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank Robert, Kalila, and Jermaine for agreeing to do this. I think anyone who's listening, if you didn't take away information or a piece of advice, then I don't know if you were listening, because you guys were definitely dropping gems that I know, even if you don't work in art, that you can definitely apply it to other aspects of your life and your career. So with that being said, I think I'm going to turn it over to Sora Lisa, who will give a closing. And yeah, we will wrap it up. Don't forget to visit these artists' website and their social media, buy their work. They please invest in Black artists. They do amazing work. I know you can see Robert's paintings behind him, so he does You see, he's turning. He's got the whole view. Definitely, support Black artists. So thank you both. Thank you, Kalila, as well.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me turn on that. Can we bring them back? I just want to thank them in person.